All right, we are ready again. Good evening, good evening. And of course, that depends on where you are zooming in from. So if it's good morning, it's good morning. If it's good afternoon, it's good afternoon. But I really want to welcome you to our presentation. As a matter of fact, I want to welcome you to our Bible study this evening. I'm Sean Carter. This is our Sabbath Bible study. We do this every week. At first, we started just us as a family, and then we are now extending it to our brothers and sisters. So we welcome you. I'm not sure where you are zooming in from. Let me go to the chat to see if you can put in the chat where you are zooming in from. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Shabbat to you, and I hope you will enjoy this Bible study. Okay, so you know my task. Oh, welcome from South Africa, from England. Oh, goodness. From Paris. Oh my goodness, the presence of Yahuwah is everywhere. A matter of fact, Jonah was in the bottom of the ocean, and he says, it doesn't matter where I go, you are always with me. From New York, from Berlin, welcome, welcome, welcome. From Atlanta. Oh my goodness, it is really a privilege. It's really a blessing to be in front of you and just to share the word of our Abaya. So my job is very easy. I'm here just to talk about the Hebrew alphabet, and we have been talking about it a few evenings now. A matter of fact, we are on the 8th letter, and I hope this is the correct one. Okay, there we go. Okay, we are on the 8th letter. And I know sometimes you ask again, okay, I grew up learning English, I grew up learning Spanish. Why is it important for me to learn Hebrew? And the simplest answer I can give you is because the Bible was written in Hebrew. The Bible was written to us. It was written for us. And when we start to understand it from the Hebraic perspective, it opens up a brand new world. It gives us new meaning. And the more you dive into it, the more you will see the relevance of that. All right, just let me know if you are seeing my screen, please, so I can know if I'm sharing the right thing. If you are seeing my screen, let me know. Okay. So let me do it again, so I can make sure I have it right. Is it this one, Chef? Okay, that should be it. Am I good?
Yeah, good job.
Okay, all right. So tonight we are on the 8th letter, which is the...
Minimize that screen.
Okay, hold on, because I'm still not sharing. So let me see what am I doing wrong?
Share again.
Okay, well, I'm seeing the entire PowerPoint, but I'm not seeing... Okay. All right, let me try that one more time.
3.
You said basic?
3. No, come right there. Share screen.
Okay, am I good?
Alright, sorry.
Yeah. We're just seeing the seal. We don't see we see the seal.
All right, there we go. Thank you, thank you. All right, so tonight we are on letter number 8. Letter number 8 is the het, and you will see it is spelled C-H-E-T. Sometimes it is spelled H-E-T, depending on where you are getting your information, but the meaning remains the same. The meaning is not going to change. Okay, so the het makes the k sound, or sometimes it makes the silent sound, and it means a fence. It is a All right, hold on. Let's get this thing right. So everybody is all right. Okay, am I good?
This,
All right, thank you. All right, so it is represented by the picture of a fence or a tent wall. It means a separation, it means protection. So as you think about the het, I want you to think about how our ancestors lived and the fact that they had walls around their community to keep them fenced in, to keep them protected. Not only that, but they had walls dividing the tent to show the area for the men and the area for the women. That was also very important in the lives of our ancestors. So think about the head, think about protection, think about separation as we go into the lesson. Okay. All right. On the screen, you will see the picture of the modern het in the middle. That's how it is written. And then at the side, you will actually see the paleo version and the pictograph, which basically look the same. One just looks like the fence standing up. One looks like the fence laying down, but basically it's the same. But our focus is on the modern, which if you're looking at Hebrew letters or Hebrew word and you see that formation, then you know it is the het. All right, so let's dive into the Bible and let's see how the het can be a part of our everyday lives. In Genesis 3 verse 10, our ancestor Adam, he says, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked and I hid myself. Immediately when I see that verse, I see that separation coming into place. Adam knew he had done something wrong. He recognized his filthiness and his sinfulness, and he hid himself from Yahuwah. So the het can certainly cause separation. The het can cause us to be away from our wall of protection or our domain where we are safe and where we are protected. So that is one way of looking at the het, separating from Yahuwah. Another way to look at it is in Proverbs 9 verse 10, where it says, the fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. This is kind of different. This fear is the beginning of wisdom. To me, it looks like I'm separating myself from something, but in this case, I'm going to Yahuwah. So I'm seeing separation as going away from Yahuwah. I'm seeing separation as going towards Yahuwah. My prayer for us tonight is that as we separate, we will definitely move towards Yahuwah. Now, that separation can mean several things. Sometimes we have to separate ourselves from the way we think. Sometimes we have to separate ourselves from our friends, from the life that we currently know. We have to separate ourselves from certain foods, from certain festivities. But definitely, as we draw closer to Yahuwah, He gives us a different way of life, a different way of thinking, different friends, different food, different festivities. So depending on how you look at it, separation can definitely be positive. I'm going to end with Psalm 27, and I'm going to read verses 1 through 6, the life of David, or just a portion of the life of David. And if you know David's life, you know David's life was a complete roller coaster, up and down all over the place, but he never lost sight, or even when he lost sight of Yahuwah, he went right back to him. And that is the beauty of going back to Yahuwah. So Psalm 27 verse 1 to 6 says, Yahuwah is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Yahuwah is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked, even my enemies and my foes, came upon me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell. Though an host should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war should rise against me, in this will I be confident. And I asked myself, how could David be confident in war when his enemies around him are trying to kill him? And I said he could only do that because he was under that protection. That het was a serious part of his life. Verse 4 says, one thing have I desired of Yahuwah, and that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of Yahuwah all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of Yahuwah and to inquire in his temple. For in the time of troubles he shall hide me in his pavilion, he shall protect me. In the secret of his tabernacle shall he hide me. He shall set me upon a rock. And now shall mine head be lifted up above mine enemies round about me. Therefore I will offer in his tabernacles sacrifices of joy. I will sing, yea, I will sing praises unto Yahuwah. And we can only sing his praises because we are protected. We know the het and we know what it means. May Yahuwah protect us tonight. May Yahuwah protect your family as we dive deeper into his words. God bless you. Shalom.
That was a good study.
All right. Here's Miles and then Chris. Oh,
Hello,
good.
hello. Shabbat shalom. Oh, you want to go real quick? Shabbat shalom. That was really good.
Yes, I love that protection, and I feel confident knowing that even though I'm leaving something, I'm going towards something bigger. I'm going towards something better because Yahuwah promises greatness. He wishes that we prosper. He wishes that we be in good health, and I'm so happy for that. So the het,
Yeah.
protection, safety, separation, a very important part of our lives.
Right. That's powerful. I don't think oftentimes separation can look at like something so difficult, or we see it as something bad, but
Yes,
knowing that,
which is why I say it depends on how you look at it. You're separating from your friends, maybe. You're separating from that old life that we knew. We're separating from the food that we eat, from the festivities that we're used to. But then when we come into Yahuwah, he replaces all of that with something new,
and more.
something more.
That's true.
And it gives us a closer walk with him, and it gives us a deeper relationship and a deeper understanding as well. So I'm happy for the het.
That's true.
I'm happy for the fence.
Well, thank you for that study.
All right.
Is the frame good? Can you see us? Frame?
Good.
All right, cool.
Are we good? All
We're
right.
good.
Sweet. All right. Well, Shabbat shalom, everybody. Can you hear me? All right.
Yep, sound good. No buzzing. We good so far.
Cool beans. Well, I hope this week has been good for you guys. I was told that I speak low on these Bible studies, so I'm gonna try to speak a little bit louder today. But naturally in conversation, I'm a pretty just laid back kind of person, so I'm gonna try my best. Do we want to start with prayer or?
That would be good.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to say a prayer real quick. I can pray. Bow our heads. Most High, Yah, I thank you for the opportunity to come here and gather today with friends, with family, and mostly the fact that we're able to gather onto you. I thank you for the opportunity to separate ourselves from the world, to separate ourselves from work, from stress, from obligations, and to separate ourselves onto you, to come into your peace in this Shabbat. And so I pray that this Shabbat will be one that is full of rest, one that is full of clarity, full of love, one in which our hearts may be renewed and inclined even further onto you. I pray that you will come and be amidst us as we go into your word and we study and we talk tonight, and that your spirit will be amidst us to bring us clarity, to bring ourselves before you in a position of humility to learn. So thank you, Yah, just for the opportunity to come here and to be together and to learn together as students in your word. In your name I pray. Amen.
Shabbat Shalom. How are you today? Okay.
Sabrina. We want to start calling. What's up, Natalie? How are you guys feeling?
Okay, so where's Amore?
Amor?
Amore. We just want to celebrate with Amore today. She last week she said that she would try to observe the Shabbat for the first time in her life today,
Wow.
starting sunset today. So whether that was successful for the first time, what counts is the heart.
Yeah.
And I'm not seeing her here now, but we just want to pray with you and celebrate and rejoice with you, Amore. And at this time, Jeremiah, who was here like 2 weeks ago, 3,
He's in Africa.
he's in South Africa at this moment. That's why he's not here. But welcome back to all those who have been here, who've made these discussions very vibrant. I just want to say thank you, and we look forward every week to just share with you and to be inspired by you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You are
Oh, there's Amore.
Amore. Hey, how is it going?
Good, yeah. What about with you guys?
We're good. We're good.
Can I ask how your first Shabbat was?
It was okay. I found it kind of quite useful to just allocate a whole day for God. But I kind of slipped up a little bit because I went out for a few hours just to go to the supermarket, but I didn't think it would have like such like a significant effect. But I actually found that even though it's like kind of an innocent thing, it's still, I think I still would have been better off just completely separating myself from the world for that day.
Wow.
So I've learned for tomorrow.
It's a daily process.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's a daily. Yahuwah knows, and He sees where your heart is, and He reserves a blessing for those of us like yourself who separate ourselves unto the Shabbat. He said that in the Bible, and I'm sure there's a blessing. He blessed you, and He blessed your effort, and your efforts will be multiplied. Praise Yah, Toda Yah for you. Amor.
Praise God. Amen.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Can I just say something?
Hey, what's going on?
Hey. So I haven't made the last couple of ones because of school, but I'm really happy to be here because I have no class today. But I just wanted to say that, like what you said, I think is very true because I decided to do like a little fast from like secular music because that's something that I really struggle with. Like I really love worldly music, but I just feel like for my first step, I just like didn't listen to secular music and I just listened to like, you know, more godly type music. And I don't know if it's a coincidence, but I got a job. Like I applied to mad jobs and I didn't hear nothing back. And then when I started doing this fast, I like literally got a call back. And then at the same time, I got my license. So I don't know if it's a coincidence, but my life is seeming pretty good right now. So yeah. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Praise Yah. That's amazing. I find often that normally when I engage like fast myself, and this is not at all to like get into the mindset of like working for blessings or anything like that, but I find that when we do like put forth effort, the Most High acknowledges that effort in a way that is deeply personal to us oftentimes, you know. And so the fact that you decided to like fast from music, I tried to do that like a few months ago too, and what it did for me was things I'm still on work like figuring out now, but it definitely for one gave me a deeper appreciation for music that really speaks towards my spirit. And even now I find myself that whenever I listen to like more, I guess what we call godly music, it brings me the ease that I tend to search for in many other things, you know. And so I'm really glad that the Most High is working in your life in that way and honoring. I'm glad that you're like taking steps to like, you know, try to use that head. Was it a head?
Yes.
To separate yourself from things and towards the Most High. And I'm glad that you're able to see him, or he's revealing more of himself to you and honoring your efforts. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing.
wasn't the lesson on the head. We didn't plan to say we're going to do this subject in the body and this subject in the letter in terms of the beginning of the program. But we find that many times they overlap. Because I hear her speaking about the separation, her speaking about the Genesis situation, and I'm saying, wow, did she look in my notes? But Yahuwah works that way. He brings stuff together in ways that we cannot plan. And as you mentioned, the Het and Amori and Sabrina and all the persons, 37 now, who've come away to be with us tonight, exercising that Het, that separation from, because wherever you are, you could have been doing something else, but you chose to be here, and we really say thanks. We say Toda Rabbah for that, and we honor that commitment, and Yahuwah honors that commitment.
So what are we jumping into this week?
We're looking at, we're doing the final. There was much more that we could have done. Yeah, I'm here trying to silence my phone. Okay, silent. Okay, there's much more we could have done, but we decided to end this part of the series, the process of salvation, or unless persons here are still not clear and stuff, we would still go on and clear up some stuff before we move. But we decided to do the last in this series on looking at neither is there salvation in any other, for there is no other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved, Acts 4:12. And there's no other name. And we're going to look at how it is that man has always been trying to find a way to save himself. It's like we've always done that. Even now, that's what we do. We try to find a way to save ourselves. It's like I damaged the car. I got a car and something goes wrong, and I decide that I'm going to try and fix it. And I'm trying everything until at last when I'm broken and I've broken the car even more. And I decide to call the dealer, and guess what? There was a warranty on the car. And now I have to consider whether I have voided that warranty by trying to fix it myself, when all I should have done was call the dealer. I'm using that analogy to say that we often try to find solutions outside of the solution that Yahuwah has given us, and to find our own solutions. That is why there's over 40,000 denominations in Christianity alone. We're not talking about the rest of religions, just Christianity, and that counts like crazy, because every time you look, even in this time, there's a new church popping up every time you look. And it tells us that people are basically looking for, we realize that we need rescue. And we search for this rescue in various ways. We look for it in political affiliations or endowments, in academia, in business, in whatever. But whatever it is, we are always searching for that. And tonight we're going to look and see how our ancient of days, well, not ancient of days, our ancients, our ancestors, how they too tried to find salvation elsewhere. And obviously, the disciples would have seen this, Peter, for them to have made that statement. It must have been something that was prevalent with them. Also, when you step back to further or forward in history to where we are, when we look back at what caused us to be here, we realize that began with us trying to find our own salvation. Or for parents that is trying to find their own salvation. And we know that salvation can only be found in the Hamashiach, or the rescue, or the avenging of blood, as we had torn that down few lessons back and declared or brought forth that salvation means to rescue, redemption means to buy back or to avenge of blood. So all these stuff we find that we tend to want to do it on our own. So that's where we're going tonight.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think we seek out a saving grace from seemingly everything but like the Most High? Why do you think that is so difficult for people if we are indeed realizing that we're in a problem where we need saving?
It's natural for us to want to go away from Yahweh. Because as we discussed maybe 6-7 weeks ago, that when man sinned, immediately our nature became sinful. And what we wanted, because by ourselves we are flesh, but then Yahweh had breathed his spirit into us. And because of that, Torah was in us, and our hearts were hearts of flesh, to use the analogy of the Bible. And the minute we sinned, our hearts became hearts of stone. So Yahweh could not speak to us in the same way he used to. And from then, our only desire is to move away from him. We discussed earlier that if you notice the things that we entertain us, it's that show that has the most killing. The things that entertain us actually are really detrimental to us in reality. Because if you should live in a society where there's so much gun violence, which a lot of us see, you realize that that's not beneficial to us. But that's what entertains us on TV.
The things that entice what our hearts are inclined to, the heart of stone is inclined towards.
So our hearts resonate with violence, with disobedience, with lawlessness as a whole, whether it be a simple situation as just not observing to love thy neighbor. Well, that's not simple, but I'm just saying it's simple to do. But the effects of that is really terrible. But whatever situation that is, we find that we've always resonate with the things that destroys us. And so when it comes to acknowledging that we need to be rescued, we need salvation, we acknowledge, yes, we need to be rescued, but beyond that, guess what? We said, but I can do it on my own. And every time we get beat up with the car and I find something else break when I'm trying to fix the car, I convince myself that if I just push a little harder, if I look a little deeper, I can do it. But no matter how we look or how hard we push, salvation is not of us. It's the reality.
Wow. Yeah, I definitely resonate with that, and I think that's true. I never thought about it from the perspective of the fact that our hearts of stone are naturally inclined towards these evils, I would say. But that's why that separation can be so difficult, right? Because the thing that feels natural to us is the thing that we need to move away from, because we recognize that our heart actually needs changing. And so the thing that feels natural is not necessarily the thing that is good. It's recognizing that when we start allowing the Most High to renew that heart of flesh within us, the things that are naturally in him are the things that are beneficial.
Right, and that is why we need Torah to walk us back. When we forget, when we neglect, there's something tangible. When our feelings don't feel like, there's something tangible that says this is the way. Because if it's left up to feelings, trust me, we just mentioned there's over 40,000 different denominations. That's feelings. That's man going according to how he feels. So he sets up a church or an institution to live how he feels. But when we want to go to how Yahweh says, we have to go back to Torah. And that's the difference. Torah is always Torah. While religion is everywhere and anywhere.
Wow. Yeah, I was having a conversation with someone this week, and we were talking about like Torah, and he was somebody he believed that the Torah
Oh,
was.
and for those among us who are new, I think I see my mom. Hey, Mom.
Mom.
Yeah. For those of us who are new, Torah is Genesis to Deuteronomy.
Yeah.
So it's not another book somewhere, but we just choose to call it the right name because the term law seems punitive.
Yeah.
And it seems draconian, it seems hard. And that was a translation. So the Torah or the teachings, that was the actual word that was used. So go ahead.
All right. Yeah, and I think that's worth clarifying because that was what the conversation was about, right? Where he felt that the law was just something just not to do because it was too hard, and it felt as though, the way it was presented to him, he felt as though people were working for righteousness or working for salvation or working to be saved by their own actions. And the discussion we had was that, we have to come to understand the principle of what Torah is. It's not just a group of grocery list rules. It's something to actually teach you righteousness, to teach you truth, and not so that righteousness can then mean that you're saved, but knowing that the Most High has sent His Son as a sacrifice for you. Now, being within that grace or acknowledging that act, Torah is how we then walk in accordance with what He has asked us to in making that sacrifice. And so, the word teaching is like a better, I think, understanding of it. Because I think we all can admit that we do need to be taught, right versus wrong, good versus evil, because if it's left up to us, I definitely know if it's left up to me, my perception of right or wrong changes every few months or develops every few months, in that there was a time when I thought something was right and something was wrong, and then as I grow closer to the Most High, I find out not only what is wrong, but why it's wrong. So things that may not seem bad on the surface, I start to understand the inner workings of what it does to the heart. And I feel like that's maybe something that we don't, or I was telling him that we don't dive into as often, and so it's easy for us to say at the surface, like, just let the Spirit come in and lead us right or wrong. And that's true, but in truth, the Spirit will not lead you outside of Torah, because Torah is the standard for right and wrong. And so it actually goes hand in hand.
And I must say too, you hear that a lot, and there's two things that needs to be clarified there with how society view things. When people say, let the Spirit lead you, most often they're saying, follow your heart, follow what you feel. Because most times,
Yeah, too. Oh,
I think someone needs to log on.
let's go. Go ahead.
Okay. Marcy was calling.
Okay.
Okay, Marcy Harris, if you're hearing me, we're going to try to reach you. She's been trying to log on, and it's been a little tricky for her, so we're going to try to get to her and see if we can win it.
Oh, yeah, I got it. But continue what you're saying.
So, the thing that most people do when they say, let the Spirit lead you, what they're saying to them is, go and follow your own heart. Because the truth is, what are they going to rely on if something is not going to, or someone is going to speak audibly to them? They're going to either rely on the social underpinnings around them, or the religious underpinning, the culture within that religious community that they are. So if they go to 10 of their friends, and their friend says, go ahead, and 2 says no, they're going to tend to swing with either the crowd are the ones that are telling them what they want to hear. So most times when they say, let the Spirit lead you, they're really not talking about the Ruach HaKodesh. Because guess what? When the Bible says that now is the time and that Yahweh seeketh such to worship him, they that worship him in spirit and in truth. Spirit and truth is Ruach HaKodesh and truth is Torah. In other words, in the power of the Ruach HaKodesh and the Torah. So if the Spirit is going to lead you, if you follow what Christ says, which we will touch on tonight with the woman of Samaria and the well, but he says that he seeketh such to worship them, they that worship in spirit and in truth. So the Spirit is not going to lead you away from truth at the point I'm making. So this thing about the Spirit leading you without following what Yahweh says, you're actually just doing what you want to do or what your society wants you to do. The next thing that we tend to misunderstand many times is Shaul writes a lot, and if we understand the situation in about one...
Hold on. Yeah, we got to translate. Ruach HaKodesh is the real name of the Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit is the transliterated name from the Koine Greek, where they get Holy Spirit. That's not the truth in Hebrew. It's Ruach HaKodesh. And Shaul is Paul's real Hebrew name. So I just want to clarify. I'm the translator, y'all.
Thank you. Keep reminding me.
So yeah, that's those two names.
Okay, so thank you. So what we find out when Shaul is writing and he's speaking so much about do not be shackled by the law and stuff like that. Understand that, and someone asked a question in the Discord last week about the 613 laws of Torah. Understand that this was a piece of document that was pulled out of Torah. It started when Judah was, which we're going to look at tonight again, when Judah was in charge of Jerusalem. That's after the split with Rehoboam and Jeroboam. And what ended up happening is that Judah, the tribe of Judah with Benjamin and the Levites, because Jeroboam had fired the Levites, but we're going to get to that. What they did, they created for themselves at Jerusalem a religion called Judaism. It wasn't even Judaism, because the J wasn't even created then. Huidaism. But we call it ism. And that again is a Western term. But what they did was they created these set of laws, pulling out of Torah and sometimes adding to how that was presented. So when Paul was talking about the law, sometimes he's actually talking about the laws that they created. When Christ seemed to have come against Torah, it wasn't Torah. It was all of this that was built around Torah, that it became so burdensome that they could no longer even deal with it. And what you find happening now, coming out of that, we got to the period of the Maccabees. And at the end of that period, John Hyrcanus, betrayed the kingdom into the Romans' hand. But what happened at AD 1, what we found happening was the high priests were now being selected by Rome. So no longer Yahweh was selecting the high priest, but this was new. Jeroboam did that too. And so the scenario that Shaul was writing about and speaking to, we're not seeing that readily when we just read the pages. But when we actually look into the background, we realize that he was not speaking about Torah in and of itself, but a practice that had surrounded Torah. So we have to start to pull away some of that baggage that is causing people not to see the love, the warmth, the depth of Torah, of the teachings of Yah. Can you imagine you want to go away from the teachings of Yahweh? If you say that, it would mean that you're saying that Yahweh had taught us wrong at one point, but corrected himself when Yeshua came. And we know that's not true, right? So the point here is we as a people, we have to start to teach Torah in love and to show people what that looks like. And I think we dealt with that when we dealt with teaching.
Which was the last study, which is now on YouTube. You guys, just to update, we got last week's study up on YouTube now. If you guys want to check it out after, and this one will be up there as well. But yeah, I completely agree, and I think that distinction is needed because when we hear law, oftentimes we picture stones or something hard, something difficult. But when we understand teaching, and even more when we come into relationship with Yahuwah and understand how he teaches, then we understand that it is from a place of love, and there is more to it than just what we see at the surface. So yeah, if you're ready, we could jump into the,
Okay, so for centuries, our people from the beginning, our people drifted away from Yahuwah. Centuries had passed, mountains of sacrifices and rivers of blood. Lines being drawn on both sides. Imagine Moses have to give an order in the case of the golden calf to execute 3,000 people that he was just begging for and saying to Yahuwah, kill me but save them. Imagine the dilemma in Moses' mind as he had to execute people whom he knew personally. Imagine in Moses' mind as he looked upon the people who Yah had done so much for. He himself turned his back on them when he went to Midian because he tried to save them and they snitched on him. And he said, you know what? I'm gone. I'm out. And Yahuwah went for him and said, come, you're going to do something.
in Midian.
Yeah. When he went to Midian and he was tending the sheep, his father-in-law's sheep, in the side of the mountain, and Yahuwah caused the bush to be on fire but wasn't being consumed.
Oh, when he ran away the first time. Okay,
right.
before, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So, our people have always been doing that. Going away, even to today. That's what we do. We find that in the time of the Babylonian exile, it came to a point where Israel was singing the songs of the heathen while they were in Jerusalem. And it came a point now when they were at the river Chebar. And as the psalmist exclaimed, by the rivers of Babylon, where we sat down and there we wept as we remembered Zion. And they that held us captive required of us a song. But if I forget Jerusalem, let my arm. It went through such morbid painting of what was happening there. They wanted, when they could have sung the songs of Zion, they didn't. And Yahuwah kept pleading, kept running, kept just going after us. Yet we kept running away. Now the time came, and the armies of Babylon was upon us, dragging us away, separating us by the river Chebar, Jerusalem, Babylon. Some of us went as far as Spain. Because it was a Spanish king that helped Nebuchadnezzar did that siege. And at this point now, we are forced to sing the songs of Zion in a time when we would not even want to sing them. We are forced to recite the chants, because these were not just songs that we like to sing today. These were songs that had long verses because this was drum and chant. And we would get into that some other time, but now you're forced to sing the songs that you would not sing when you were at ease.
Why is that?
We were known for music. We were known for music. We are still known for music. If you look at we're known for music, even now. We're also known for outlandish lifestyles, like blings and stuff. We're known for that. That is a part of it. And so the people who held us captive knew that of us and said, sing for us. So we were now the music box. Just as in times past here, just a few years ago, maybe 100, we used to be those in the peep boxes that were on TV at that time when people would pay to come see us act. Peep shows. But we had to sing. When I reflect on that passage of scripture, it also brings me to today. A songwriter penned it where we also, our foreparents, had disobeyed, rejected not just Moses, not just Elijah, not just Jeremiah, who we've done so much wicked things to, but the Hamashiach himself. And because of that, he said, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, if thou had known the day of thy visitation, how often would I have gathered you as a hen gathers her chick, but you would not." Because of that rejection, we would have been scattered. And Deuteronomy says that the curse will pursue us wherever we go. And we find the song that we're going to be listening shortly. O freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave. And go home to see my Lord and be free. Of course, that's a kind of not biblical. But that's how far we were. It paints a picture of a people who would rather die. Your battery is low, so you may want to go.
That's okay.
Yeah. It paints a picture of a people who would rather die than to be a slave. Why? Because in this slavery, it's scientific. It was not just about money. In fact, it was less about money than anything else, because remember that the people who gave the order to enslave us had ruled that part of the world for like 800 years before. So they weren't short on money. They had money. But it was systemic in that it was supposed to remove the people who had the direct oracle, because we had the goat skins scrolls at that time when we were in Europe. We had the goatskin scrolls in Portugal. Yet we were not living as we should at all the time.
When you say we had the goatskin scrolls at that point, what do you mean? And when you say we had the oracle,
we used to write the Torah on goat skin, dyed red. They could be as long as 40 feet, one scroll. And those documents would be held in, it's like maximum security. So wherever we went, we if we're gonna be in flight, before we grab food, we grab the scroll. And we're running with the scroll, hungry. That's how we are. Yet the scroll was not in our hearts. That is what led us to be in flight at this time anyway. So we had the scroll in Portugal. Yet the history tells us that we were hated because we did some stuff. We were always, in Jamaican term we say bossy. But we were always hype. Just as we are now. We want to drive the car with the biggest rims, not me, but you know how we are. And we're just always
boastful.
Yeah, boastful. And you find that curse in Deuteronomy followed us there. And when we came here, the lyrics of this song was penned because there was a whole lot who jumped over board in the sea to a certain death so as to escape coming here. Again, when this started, we rejected the religion that was being forced upon us in times of hardship. When we had enough time to practice Torah, we didn't. And now we want to hold on to Torah when it's too late, when we're being torn away from the land to be shipped elsewhere. And so this song, I'm going to share this song with you. It paints this picture of this, the hardship of this situation. Are you hearing it?
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. Over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. No more weeping, don't you know? No more weeping. No more weeping over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my home and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Freedom. Freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free.
What does that song say to you?
It paints a picture of a time which we're still living in, when the reality of our disobedience, and I'm going to put it that way, the reality of us trying to find salvation outside of the source, the reality of us walking away from Torah, the reality of us doing our own thing came down upon us in such an overwhelming outpouring that we would rather die than face that chastisement that was designed to bring us peace. I'm not sure if the writer thought of it this way, because you would realize that by this, the Hebrew understanding of what happens after death is not expressed in this song, because she thinks that when she dies, she's going to go to Yahuwah. That's a Western thinking. However, the picture that it paints speaks volumes of the situation that led us here. But we want to go back to, way back to Genesis. And we're going to see that we didn't just end up here. We didn't just start in AD 70. In fact, this has been how we've operated for centuries, millenniums, as a people. There are certain family traits that tend to follow family line. There are certain tribal traits that tend to follow, and that's where we are now. And if you look, we're going to go to I'm going to share the screen again. Let me go forward and just share. I'm going to share because I want to show us something. Genesis 3:6-7 and 21. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of them both were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together, and made themselves aprons. And I'm going to come back to this. For some reason it's not advancing. Let me advance it. And unto Adam and also... Did I miss something? Sorry. Okay. Unto Adam also and to his wife did Yahuwah, this is 21, Elohim made coats of skins and clothed them. Now, notice what happened when the couple sinned. They hid themselves from Yahuwah. Notice what they did. They made aprons of fig leaves. There's a significance of why this was recorded in Genesis. And also notice Yahuwah made them coats of skin. Leaves fade. You don't even have to do anything to them. Once they're cut from the source, they fade naturally. Aprons of fig leaves would have been very, very temporary. Also, coats of skin would have been more permanent. This covering for man had to be made by Yahuwah. It must be his robe. If you read 2:25, it says, and they were naked and they were not ashamed. But yet in 3, we find that they became ashamed. What we find happening here is that the robe of righteousness that would have covered them is now gone. Again, that changed when we sinned and that heart of stone became our reality. Yahuwah in this scenario made the very first sacrifice. That animal that died to clothe them did nothing wrong. was not even a party to their sin, may not have even witnessed it, yet that animal died to clothe them, to clothe their nakedness because of sin. Their attitude towards that was to find that salvation by themselves, by covering themselves. Remember that Yahuwah spoke to them in person. Remember that Yahuwah is omniscient. He already knew what they did. He already knew that they was going to do it. So he knew all this. Their attitude should have been to call out to Yah for help, because we realize we're in a predicament. But what did they do? They tried to find a solution for themselves, because guess what? Now the heart of stone is dictating your actions. And that heart of stone is at enmity with Yahuwah. You remember Shaul mentioned that there's two laws within him? The laws of the flesh and you realize now that the heart of stone is now commanding your actions. And the heart of flesh, Yahuwah is trying to instill that back in you. So you know you're struggling between these two things. And what happened, what took place here is that the heart of stone dictated that you find that covering for yourself. Your first step back to righteousness, you tried to do it yourself. The next thing that happened when they heard Yahuwah, they hid themselves. It is only in the presence of Yah that sin can be eradicated. So when you hide from Yah, you're basically allowing sin to continue to flourish. And so us walking away, the head, separating ourselves, because that sin did separate us from Yahuwah. In that we could no longer face Yahuwah because of the guilt that is in us. Not that his love has changed, but that our guilt, our sins, as the Bible says, has separated between us and him. So the separation was emotional, spiritual, physical. Next we find that Yahuwah now in providing this covering gives us a glimpse of what's going to happen. Because understand that this animal that died also now shows us another component that is involved in this process of salvation. That is blood. That was shed blood. That was the first time they would have seen blood shed. And it must have devastated them, but that was what it was already. Now I'm going to go to the... sorry. So let's go to the next one. Hebrews 9:22. And almost all things are by the law purged with blood, and without the shedding of blood there is no remission, or there is no forgiveness.
I was going to ask what remission meant.
Right. So there's no forgiveness without the shedding of blood. In other words, this example I'm giving you now of an innocent animal being killed is pointing you to the Hamashiach. So that is why I can't understand people who say they are Hebrews and Jews and not embrace the Hamashiach. It just doesn't compute for me, because from the very first act of Yahuwah in reconciliation, and that is clothing the couple, he shed blood. And that is why Shaul says, and without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness. Because someone has to pay for sin.
Wow.
When the Hamashiach died on the cross, it did not remove the consequence of sin. for everyone. What it did, it gave us a way in to be justified or to be declared right even though we are wrong. And so you find us, and I'm going to move on to the next step. So if he didn't die, we couldn't get forgiveness. That's simply what Paul is saying.
So his death, and for those who may not, if you haven't caught it by now, the Hamashiach is Christ, meaning the anointed one. But of course, in the actual Hebrew tongue, which is why we call him Yehoshua Hamashiach. Well, Yeshua, the anointed one.
Yeah.
But the point you just made being that his death on the cross was not the destroying of sin, but rather the avenue by which...
Yes, because sin would be destroyed eventually at the second coming. Of course, we are still seeing sin now, and he has died. What it did, it was the assurance of victory. That's what it was. It was the assurance of victory. It was the ultimate sacrifice made that was prefigured from the very first animal that was killed in Genesis 3.
So from the very beginning, the Most High was already pointing to... Wow.
While we were already running away from him, trying to find another way to be rescued, to be salvaged. So both things were happening at the same time. We're going to look at the clothing, Revelation. There's a shortcut for that and I keep forgetting it. But it's okay. Christ says, I counsel thee, speaking to the Laodicea, the community of Hebrews at Laodicea. I know that the Bible says the church at Laodicea, but that was not there. It was ecclesia. So it said the community of believers, or the community of Hebrews, along with all those who have joined with them. I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed, that the shame of thy nakedness do not appear, and anoint thine eyes with eye salve, that thou mayest see. Now, notice a language here. In Genesis, the Bible says that Genesis 2:25, I think it was, that they were naked and were not ashamed. Yet in 3, they were ashamed. Here Christ is saying that the shame of thy nakedness does not appear. It gives you an understanding of what sin does. It embarrasses us. It feels good when you're doing it, but it embarrasses you and ultimately kills you. And Hamashiach is saying, take my raiment, be clothed in my raiment, that the shame of, in other words, my righteousness is everlasting. And if you be clothed in my righteousness, the shame of your nakedness will not appear again. Yet that did not stop us from sinning. We're going to move on, and I'm going to start a call on persons to read, because we find in 2 Chronicles 10, okay, just keep it on the Torah screen.
Okay.
We find in, can stop sharing here because we're going to read from the Bible now.
Okay.
We find in 2 Chronicles 10 verse 18.
Well, just to recap before we move on, I just want to make sure, do a check-in. Where's everybody at so far? Because I feel like a lot of what you just said just resonated with me in my own understanding of sin, but even more in seeing a larger picture of the Hamashiach and how this was already declared since the very beginning. And in these small things that we often just gloss by or gloss over, in the way Adam and Eve, they created clothing of leaves. And I don't know if I ever asked growing up, well, why did Yah give them the clothing of skin, if they were already clothed in the leaves? I never asked those questions, but now kind of diving into that and seeing how that in itself was already a foreshadowing of our position even today, in how we seek to save ourselves with our own version of leaves, whether it be our own theologies or our own understandings or our own religions or people or whatever we find ourselves attracted to, trying to save ourselves from what it is that we feel inside. But ultimately they're all leaves, and they all leave. Another bar. But it's the truth is in what the Most High already established from the beginning, in that he had to come and shed blood to cover us in clothing that was permanent. And it's not that we are now sinless as of yet as we're living in this world, but that he has provided a way now for us to be covered. And so it brings to me the image of what grace is in the Hebrew understanding, being that house of protection. When we sin, we remove ourselves from that house of protection. We remove that raiment from ourselves and expose our nakedness once more. But in order to be clothed once again, we have to be obedient to the Most High and seek the Most High, call out to him when we are ashamed, to come back into that, or to be led back into that righteousness, to be led back into that covering, to be led back into the raiment of Hamashiach.
And to be separated from the world by the head.
And to be separated from the...
Okay, so...
Let me check the chat real quick just to make sure we're not...
While you're doing that, Miles, that part where you explained it just hit me with a wow. That I put in the chat is that even with grace, even through sin, where the Adam and Hua tried to clothe themselves in figs, the Most High still had grace to say, I'm not going to allow, I'm going to remove the trauma of you slaughtering an animal. I'm going to do it for you. And so I'm going to do it for you to show you how traumatic. So you don't have to experience that to get it. But I'm going to do it for you to show you what sin does, what the consequence of sin is. So instead of making you do it, I'm going to do it for you. So I'm still going to offer you grace and do it for you and give it to you. It's that just visualizing it was just powerful to me. Is that even in that moment, he's still just constantly showing grace and saying, even though you offended me, I'm going to take this burden from you and give you this myself.
Wow. Right. Valid, completely.
Did we have any other question in the chat?
No, just a few things, but Stanley has been just sending the text and clarifying.
Hey, thank you, Stanley.
Yeah. And by the way, and by the way, as we're going through this study, if any questions come to mind, if you feel like you need something clarified more, please feel completely free to leave a question or a thought, in the chat, and we'll by all means make sure we take a pause and address it, just to make sure we're all moving forward together in the study.
Oh, we're not sharing.
We're not sharing? Okay.
Okay, can someone find for me 2 Chronicles 10, 18 to 19? 2 Chronicles 13, 8 to 9. We're going to do 2 Chronicles 13 first. I mean, I can find it, but I prefer...
You said you want 10 or 13? You want 13 first?
I need 13, 8 to 9, 10, 18 to 19, and 10 would be first. Sorry.
Okay, so 10.
And while you do that, over the period, our people has always been drifting from Yahuwah. You remember when we covered maybe 2 weeks ago when we asked for a king? When Yahuwah was our king. That was another step. We needed deliverance, and what we said specifically was that other nations have kings who fight for them. And Samuel was very upset. And Yahuwah said, don't be upset. They're not rejecting you, they're rejecting me. And when we read the prophecy in Genesis that when Yahweh tell Abraham that kings will come out of him, we think it was a positive prophecy, wasn't? Yahweh wasn't saying to him, this is a glorious thing that kings are going to come of you. Because when we hear how Yahweh describe what the kings will do to the people, we realize that, oh, it wasn't so good to have a king after all. That is not Yahweh. But the point being is that Yahweh was always our king. We rejected him. Again, you see the pattern happening here of us constantly rejecting him, constantly. That is why Isaiah said, all we like sheep have gone astray. Each of us have gone to our own way. Yet Yahweh has laid upon him the iniquity of us all. Okay, have you found it? Second Chronicles?
I got, you want to do start off with the CJB, or you want to do the NIV? How you want to?
CJB.
Okay. So this is, with CJB, it starts with the context and start with 17. So
may I say something right quick, Brother Chris? This is Ruthlin here.
Yeah.
So I have the CJB and I'm looking for Second Chronicles. I'm so used to finding it like at the very beginning of the Bible.
To the content. Go to the content.
So I find it, but I mean, I probably have to get with you on this.
Yeah.
Because it kind of brings some question to mind, not to discuss tonight, but I'm just letting you know, just in case I forget. But it's like at the very back, closer to Revelation. Okay, sorry about that. I will talk to you more about that. What question is bringing into mind? Huh?
Sure, Chronicles or Corinthians?
You may be looking at Corinthians.
Chronicles. I'm looking at. I have the CJ. Didn't I pause it?
Yes, the one I have. What version do you have? Do you have the U version, or do you? Because the version I have, it's a line.
Still after Kings, yeah, but some of them don't follow the exact.
It's the one I have.
Oh, look at it.
Yeah, the one I have has it in the typical order.
Yeah, this one does not have it in the typical order at all. Because I'm looking for it, and then you have Job, you have Ecclesiastes, you have Ezra, Nehemiah, then you have Chronicles.
Okay, I'm not sure why them do. In some of them they do though, they do, but we can talk about it.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, alrighty.
Okay, Stanley, you ready to read?
Yep. We'll start with 17. It says, "But as for the people of Israel living in the cities of Yehuda, Rechavam ruled over them. King Rechavam then sent Hadoram, who was in charge of forced labor, but the people of Israel stoned him to death."
Sorry.
Second Chronicles 10. 18, 19.
I should have read another one before that. That might not seem right now. Okay, so let me give you the backstory on that. Jeroboam. Rehoboam is Solomon's son. Jeroboam had to flee Israel because Solomon tried to kill him when he knew that Yahweh was going to give him a part of the kingdom. So he fled to Egypt. Upon Solomon's death, the people sent for him. He came back and he pulled together a representation and went to Rehoboam and said, look, the people want to, the pressure, because we know that Solomon had done some crazy stuff at the last half of his life.
This is actually in verse 6. Where I'm following you along where you're reading it. You're talking about, you're now in verse 6.
Okay. Okay, so maybe you want to read it then.
So the part is at verse 6, King Rechavam consulted the older men who had been in attendance on Shlomo, his father during his lifetime and asked, "What advice would you give me as to how to answer these people?" They said to him, "If you will treat these people kindly, pleasing them and giving them favorable consideration, they will be your servants forever." But he didn't take the advice. This is verse 8. But he didn't take the advice the older men gave him. Instead, he consulted the young men he grew up with and who were now his attendants. He said to them, this is verse 9. He said to them, "What advice would you give me so that we can give an answer to these people who said to me, 'Lighten the yoke that your father laid on us'?"
Hold.
Mhm.
Do you notice what was happening here? If anyone that was here from the beginning, you would understand that Torah was meant to be taught personally, father to son, going down. Here were the ancients among them, the elders, who knew all that went on, giving him good advice. But again, he chose, knowing that Yahweh had made this prediction, this prophecy before, he chose to do his own thing. He went to those who would tell him what he wanted to hear. Remember we spoke about earlier about letting the Spirit lead you, quote unquote. He went to those who told him what he wanted to hear and rejected the knowledge of those who knew what to do. So again, every time we go astray, there's a deliberate decision to walk away. Continue.
Okay, what was that on verse
10?
10. Verse 10, the young men he had grew up with said to him, "The people who said to you, 'Your father made our yoke heavy, but you make it lighter for us.' Here's the answer you should give them. My little finger is thicker than my father's waist." Verse 11, "My father burdened you with a heavy yoke, but I will make it heavier. My father controlled you with whips, but I will control you with scorpions." Verse 12, so Yaravam and all the people came to Rechavam. Huh?
Yaravam is
Yep.
Jeroboam. Continue.
And all the people came to Rechavam the third day as the king and requested by saying, "Come to me again the third day." Verse 13, and the king answered them harshly, abandoning the advice of the older men, King Rechavam. Verse 14, addressed them according to the advice of the young men and said, "I will make your yoke heavy and I will add to it. My father controlled you with whips, but I will control you with scorpions." Verse
Can we hold right here for a second?
Mhm.
So the scenario that's happening here, from what I'm understanding, the Israel has split.
They've not split yet. They're about to.
Okay,
They're about to split.
They haven't split yet.
So
So
Solomon had ruled, but he had started building cities and stuff, and he started enslaving his own people.
Okay.
Not enslavement as we know it now as transatlantic, but it started putting heavy burden on the people.
Like taxes and stuff like that.
and all that.
Okay. And so after Solomon dies now, they sent for his son.
His son became king.
His son becomes king.
Which is Rehoboam.
Okay.
Jeroboam had fled Israel before because Solomon sought to kill him.
Okay.
Now that Solomon is dead, he comes back and rallies the people to go to his son. Now you're a new king. It's your inauguration. Here's what we request of you. Treat us better, and we acknowledge you as our king.
Okay. So Jeroboam is a righteous figure in this story where he...
For the moment.
For the moment. Where he,
For the moment.
For the moment.
So he comes back and he's essentially, what it seems like, he gathers the poor together because it seems like the poor are the ones who are facing the affliction of the taxes. And
Yahweh told him that he was going to give him a part of the kingdom.
Okay.
And Solomon knew this prophecy and wanted to kill him. So,
okay.
So, he had told him, "I'm going to give you part of the kingdom." But
so then when Jeroboam comes now and him and the people go before Rehoboam and ask him, "Hey, like, now that you're the new king, this is what we'd like for you as the people to treat us more fairly, maybe like remove these taxes or lessen them." And Rehoboam seeks counsel. He goes to the elders, and they tell him one
Which
thing.
served his father.
Which served his father. And they tell him one thing according to Torah. And he leaves them and goes to his young men, like his friends and those who are with him, and asks them counsel. And they tell him to be harsher with the people, you know, is what I'm getting. And I can kind of imagine that, because I think a lot of young kings would be like, okay, the way for me to control people is for them to fear me, or for me to be above them. And so he says, my father did this to you, but I will do worst. Because the funny statement in there was that he said, my pinky finger is thicker than my father's waist.
Yeah.
You know?
As if to say, my father has
That's
no
tough. That's tough. That was hard. Yeah. It's like, you know, but that's not even compared like pinky to a waist. Oh, man. That's total. That's what Birdman say. He put no respect on that man.
That's totally disrespectful.
Complete disrespect.
So he's essentially saying, like, whatever my father did, I'm going to do 10 times more.
Yeah.
Essentially. Okay. All right.
So here we find, continue reading.
We are, what's it, 15. Verse 15. So the king didn't listen to the people, and that was something God brought about, so that Adonai could fulfill his word, which he had spoken through Achiah, and from Shiloh to Yahram, the son of Nebat. Verse 16. When all Israel saw that the king wasn't listening to them, the people answered the king, do we have any share in David, which David? We have no heritage in the son of Yeshai. Everyone to your tents, Israel. Care for your own house, David. Okay,
hold right there. That's a famous statement. To your tents, O Israel, for what have we in David, or the son of Jesse? That's a powerful statement. And we are going to see how that plays out. Now, Genesis outlines the prophecy and the promises and the blessings. As it says in Genesis, that the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor lawgiver from betwixt his teeth, until Shiloh. Shiloh is the rightful ruler. In other words, ruling of Jerusalem is going to happen through Judah until the rightful ruler, which is Christ, the Hamashiach. And we also know that the line that was supposed to usher in the Messiah is this line. Now, Israel is saying, you know what? Forget salvation. We're going to do this on our own. To your tents, O Israel, what have we in David? In other words, you know what? I'm going to forget Yah because you are treating me bad. I'm going to throw the Bible away because someone else treats me bad. I'm going to forget the heritage because someone else, in spite of all that Yah had done for you, in spite of the fact that you did not cause the sun to shine this morning, and you're breathing oxygen that you did not create. But I'm going to forget Yah anyway, because of someone else who is breathing the same oxygen, who's getting the same sunshine as you, but is put on that level to eclipse Yahuwah, so that you will not countenance Yahuwah because of this person.
So isn't that the same as today as church hurt? You know,
it is the very same.
Same.
It's the very same. So what happened here? Israel, 10 tribes, decided, you know what? Forget you. David, look about your own house. We're going our way. And we're going to go do what we do. And in 18, we're going to see the result of this. So Rehoboam sends a tax collector. And of course, read verse 18 for me now. Rehoboam sends a tax collector.
Verse 8. Okay, hold on. My son's here. You gonna be quiet?
I get it for you.
Okay. he wants to talk.
What's up, bro? You want to read it? Nah, you don't.
If anyone wants to read, though, because if anyone in the chat at all would want to read, we will.
Okay, I think he's gonna be quiet for me. verse 18, if nobody else wants to read, verse 18, King Rehoboam then sent Hadoram, who was in charge of forced labor, but the people of Israel stoned him to death. King Rehoboam managed to mount his chariot and flee to Jerusalem.
That's 19.
Verse 19, Israel has been in rebellion against the dynasty of David till this day.
You see what's happening now?
Who just
Huh?
No, I was gonna ask who got stoned just now.
Rehoboam sends. Did you want to come in, Lawrence?
Oh no, I'm just coming in. I was just trying to find out what chapter you was in.
Okay, Second Chronicles 10.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom. So Rehoboam sends someone to collect tax. This man was also in charge of forced labor. Maybe to rally the people to say, come back. We need you. We have work to do. It's funny how this shows the very attitude of Pharaoh. But my only interest in you is for work. It's for money. It's funny how it shows our very circumstance that we live in today. Now, they stoned him to death. How dare you? We just secede. We seceded from your state. How dare you send someone to us? So they killed him as a sign that, look, we are apart. We are no longer friends. Not just friends, we are no longer family. They were family. These were brothers. So they've separated. And when you start to read, someone find for me 1 Kings 12, verse 28.
And before we, I just wanted to ask, didn't the people have like at least some sense of right in that they're being oppressed and afflicted, so they decide to leave? Even
that's what they asked for.
Yeah.
They asked for this. They literally asked for a king, right?
And Yahweh told them that this was going to happen eventually. He told them, even before they got the king. They could have said at that moment, you know what? Now that we're seeing what a king does, never mind. Let's not do a king and go back. But they persisted, even when.
Oh, so it's still another situation where even in that moment of recognizing the faultiness of kings, instead of turning to the Most High and returning to Him as King, they decided to choose their own way and remove themselves altogether.
Yeah, this now, and this is the issue. It's not the issue that they rejected the oppression of Rehoboam. The statement that they made basically declared that we're going to do salvation on our own.
Okay.
We see that playing out in the woman of Samaria when she said to Christ that they worship in that mountain, we worship in this mountain. This woman was putting before Christ a pagan mountain. We're going to see where that started. A pagan temple. As if it's legit. And Christ said, salvation is of the Jews. Or Yehudians. Because it wasn't, but Jew is a 18th century term, but we understand. Now, they decided that, look, we're going to find another way to salvation. If they had seceded or whatever they did and still come back to Jerusalem, to worship, because Yahuwah says that you will come to the place that I put my name to worship there. That's a command. Irrespective of what Rehoboam does, that's a command. You come to where Yah calls you to come. You worship on the day that Yah calls the Sabbath, not the one that. But you do the things that Yah asks you to do, commands you to do. Now, they decided that, okay, I'm going to split from Rehoboam, but I'm also going to find another way for salvation. And we see down in the line that Jeroboam deliberately facilitated this. It wasn't a mistake, or over years we've drifted somehow. We're a reminder that we are looking at there is no other name. Neither is there salvation found in any other, for there is no other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. We are looking at salvation, the process of salvation. Now, they decided to reject salvation because of what Rehoboam did. So even though within their right, they had a right to say that you're punishing us. The elders saw that too, and he said, look here, serve the people, treat them well. And he did listen. So it's not like they were alone. The counselors and advisors were on their side. However, if you have a lawyer defending you and you still decide to go steal something again, it means then that the lawyer cannot defend you because you're committing the same crime. So this was a situation right here where they seceded and they went to do their own thing, and they went to Samaria.
So let me ask you, so in looking at that declaration, when they, in that 4-part response, when they said, do we have any share in David? We have no heritage in the son of Yeshua or Jesse. That part was fine. It's the next, it's line 3 and 4 where they took it too far, pretty much, where it says, everyone to your tents, Israel, care for your own house, David. So pretty much that's where they went wrong, where they said, you know what, we're going to go against, because we're going to go against the covering, because I'm looking at the lesson, I think when we went over the Hebrew letter for tent, bet.
The bet.
So that's the covering. So then in this declaration, it said, everyone to your own covering, Israel, care for your own house, David. So it's that part, I'm assuming, in this 4-part statement that goes, okay, now they took it beyond just saying Rehoboam was just out of line.
They actually did a little before that when they say, what have we in David? Remember that in Abraham's line, should all the families be blessed?
Yes. Okay.
In David, because remember, Christ is called the son of David.
Right.
So Israel knew from the beginning that the Hamashiach is going to come through David's line, not just through the tribe, through David's line. So when they say, what have we in David, they knew exactly what they were saying.
So the whole thing is out of order.
They knew exactly what they were saying. Okay. And they were stepping out. And you're going to see when we read that they had an intention. There was a full plan as to how we're going to set up this new kingdom.
So it wasn't a question, it was a rhetorical question then. Because I'm reading it as like they were asking a question, like as if to say, hey, king, like, why are you treating us the way we have a share? But they're saying, nah, this is rhetorical. Like, okay, I know who this is. I'm just going to do away with the whole thing. So it's more rhetorical. Okay.
Yeah, if it was just a question, they would have stopped for him to answer it. But they followed that with a declaration. Take care of your own house, David. We're going to do our own thing. And so we find that when our foreparents did that, what they did was walk away from the covenant. They walked away from the covenant. When you read 2 Chronicles 11, 12, 13 onwards, you're going to see that play out, because they were fighting for really long. Because Rehoboam reigned 18 years, and when he died, Abijah came along and he said, you know what, Jeroboam, you've walked away from the covenant, and you are now putting up a front to fight. And Jeroboam was still holding his ground. But let's read it. It comes out clearly. Let's read 13, verse 8 to 9.
Could we get a second reader?
Yeah, that's my answer.
I love your voice, Stanley, but
I appreciate it. But let somebody else read. I'm sure y'all tired. They might be tired of hearing my voice.
We're just trying to get everybody involved.
For sure.
I'm sorry, where are we reading from?
It is 2 Chronicles 13, 8 and 9.
Okay.
Hello.
2 Chronicles 13, 8 and 9. Okay. I might not know how to pronounce the name, so I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. Now you propose to fight against the royal authority that the Lord gave to David's descendants. You have a huge army and have with you the gold bulls of Jeroboam, made to be your gods. You drove out the Lord's priests, the descendants of Aaron, and you drove out the Levites. In their place, you appointed priests in the same way that other nations do. Anybody who comes along with a bull or 7 sheep can get himself consecrated as a priest of those so-called gods of yours.
You know what was happening here?
Wow.
That's a powerful verse.
Jeroboam
Wow.
fired all the priests. Remember that.
Wow.
If we recap a little, the Aaronic priesthood was designed in such a way that they represented the Hamashiach. So, further to saying we have no inheritance in David, they fired the line that represented the Hamashiach. It's a total cut off.
Wow.
Priest, okay, Levi, Aaron was a Levite. So all Levites were assistants in the temple. However, only Aaron's line could be priest. You couldn't call someone from Judah to be priest, or from Issachar, or from Ben, nowhere else. Only Aaron's line could be priest. Not even the rest of Levites which were in the same tribe. All the rest of Levites were simply help. They assisted. But the priesthood, it was Aaronic. Had to be Aaron's seed. And Jeroboam, this seed and Aaron's seed the Levites did not get an inheritance. So they were part of the 12. So Yahweh pulled them out with no inheritance. And that is how the tithes were paid to them. For them to survive. Because they couldn't get land like that to farm. Because they were not supposed to be farming. They were supposed to be taking care of the temple.
As servants.
Right. They were supposed to dedicate their entire life to service to Yahweh. Representing Christ as our advocate his entire life. That is why the Bible said that he ever liveth to make intercession. And that is why they were supposed to always live to make intercession. As a pointing to Christ's ministry. Now, when you look at that, what you realize happening here is that this priesthood was not just a political thing. It was not just a religious thing. This was coming from Yahuwah. So when Jeroboam decides to, and obviously they had this plan long before, because they knew exactly what they were going to do. Obviously, if they called him from Egypt, there must be a plan. So when they said to your tents, O Israel, they knew exactly what they were going to do. So the next step he did, he fired all the priests. That is how the priests, Benjamin and Judah, became the persons occupying Jerusalem when Christ came. From this split, that was the final split. So the reuniting will happen when Christ come again. But that's another story. Now, Jeroboam decided, okay, I'm going to fire y'all. So we don't want any representative of Christ here. An Aaronic priesthood. So when you move the Aaronic priesthood, what you have done is remove the process of salvation. It's not just now that we are doing these things. It's not just now. So the fact that we ended up here in transatlantic slave trade, it wasn't just coming yesterday or the day before, it was coming a long time. Now, if you look at 1 Kings 12:28, did someone find that?
1 Kings 28.
12 verse 28. You're going to see some of the atrocities that took place. And you realize that, I don't know if it came out in the CJV, but you realize that they made a calf. You remember when we left Egypt? What we did when Moses went up for 40 days?
They made a calf.
We rejected Yahweh's guiding and leading and did a coup on Aaron. We did a coup. It wasn't the woman, it was the men. If you notice what he said, take off the earrings from off your daughters and your sons. So who is missing from there? The men. It was the men that went to Aaron in a militant style and said, give us a God or else. And when he made it, you know what he said? Behold, Israel, this has delivered you. On the back of the fact that you just walked through a parted Red Sea.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And you're not going to look at a calf. You see how it is that Yahweh has always been coming after us and we've always been running away, wanting to find our own way. That golden calf, he says that this calf delivered you. This calf is your salvation. Okay. You find...
Yeah, I got it.
First Kings.
It says, whereupon the king took counsel and made 2 calves of gold and said unto them, it is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Behold, thy deities, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt.
You notice he's repeating the very same thing that Aaron said?
Right.
This time he made 2 calves.
2 calves.
Yeah. and he put them in 2 strategic places. And hear what he says to them? It's too much for you to go to Jerusalem. Yahuwah had commanded them to travel to Jerusalem at least 3 times per year. The Feast of Passover, the Feast of Tabernacle, and the Feast of Pentecost in gathering. Yahuwah commanded us to do that. Yet the king is going to say it's too much for you to do. So this was not just a gradual slide from salvation. This was a direct U-turn, an affront to the process of salvation. Read 12:32 to 33.
First Kings 12, verse 32.
Yeah.
To 33. All right, I got it. So this is 1 Kings 12, verse 32. And Jeroboam ordained a feast in the 8th month, and on the 15th day of the month, like unto the feast that is in Judah, and he offered upon the altar. So did he in Bethel, sacrificing unto the calves that he had made. And he placed in Bethel the high priest, and he placed in Bethel the priests of the high places, which he had made. So he offered upon the altar, which he had made in Bethel, the 15th day of the 8th month, even in the month which he had devised in his own heart, and ordained a feast unto the children of Israel. And he offered upon the altar, and he burnt incense.
Can you begin to see what's happening here?
Golly.
This king decided to create a feast. He didn't only create a temple or a calf, or he created a feast. Understand, when you hear people saying that this is the way I choose to worship, there's nothing wrong because my heart is sincere. It's not just now that the devil has been tricking us like that. It's not about you or I. It's about what Yahuwah requires. It's not how I choose to do something. He chose to mimic a feast and expect Yahuwah to accept it. No, I'm not sure how many the feast, the 8th month I believe that would have fallen Sukkot. I'm not 100% sure.
So he took, essentially, when they not only did they separate from Judah, but they essentially created their own new religion.
All by themselves, and they created a feast in the 8th month. Now
you're right. It's Sukkot. It's Sukkot.
Understand what Sukkot represents here.
Well,
Sukkot represents.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at it. Sukkot was the 15th day of the 7th month.
Right.
I'm trying to look for it.
But the next one wasn't that close.
Right. It might have been must have been Sukkot.
So was it still in the same season?
Yeah, it had to have been Sukkot.
And notice what was that? He created a replica, a duplication. Well, it's not a duplication. He created a counterfeit.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Sukkot was a feast that the Hamashiach was supposed to be born in. This wasn't a simple move. When you create a feast to eclipse the feast that that should show the people Torah, which of course is a written character of Yahuwah. Yeah. And of course the Hamashiach is a visible manifestation of the invisible God. Yeah. When you create a feast surrounding the time that would point to his birth, because remember we discussed that the hill of the lamb or the hill of the flock, Migdal Eder, where the angels saw the shepherd, that hill was, they raised the sheep that was supposed to be killed for the sacrifice there, and those sheep were without blemish. Remember that all this happened in Sukkot because all of this was happening long before, to show that salvation is going to come to the world through the Hamashiach. First to the Hebrews, then to the rest of the world, as Shaul clearly pointed out. So this feast day points to Torah going to the world. You remember that they were supposed to read. This was a feast day that other nations could partake of also. Sukkot, or the Feast of Tabernacles, which represents Yahuwah tabernacling with us. So when he did that, that was an affront to the entire process of salvation. You put something to eclipse the very time that was supposed to be pointing to the Hamashiach's birth. And his birth, we know, heralded salvation to the world through the process of restoring Israel, then to the world. We know that. So when you created a temple with 2 calves saying, these are the gods that delivered you from Israel, and then you created a feast similar in the time period to that which Yahuwah has ordained, that's no simple feat. In essence, Yahuwah, after that, when you start to read Kings and the rest of Kings, everyone that did bad was called Jeroboam's son. And everyone that did good was called David's son. And you'll see that happening. So what he did here, this was not a simple walking away. They set up an entire system of salvation for themselves.
Wow.
But it didn't end here. We fast forward. Stanley, were you going to say something?
No, I'm just blown away again with how Sukkot it represents the Messiah, and I just put in the chat that where Sukkot comes from, and its name is Feast of Tabernacles or Festival of Shelters, and also known as the Feast of Ingathering. And like you said, he was born in the time of Sukkot, which is the time where they would harvest and gathering.
Yes.
And it says a sukkah is a name of a temporary dwelling in which farmers would live during harvesting. And I put it in the chat. And that is where the Messiah was born in. They say a manger, but he was actually born in a sukkah, which would have been the temporary dwelling which farmers would have lived during harvesting.
Right.
Fact connected to the agricultural significance of the holiday stressed by the book of Exodus. As stated in Leviticus, is also intended as a reminiscence the type of fragile dwellings in which the Israelites dwelt during the 40 years of travel in the desert after the Exodus from slavery in Egypt. So it's connecting that time period. And it says, throughout the holiday, meals are eaten inside the sukkah, and many people sleep there as well, which we see the Hamashiach and his family did. It's just amazing how this connects to his birth. So, like,
you mentioned the Feast of Ingathering. Also, you know that Revelation used that very terminology of trusting in thy sickle to reap. And of course, Isaiah says, to him shall the gathering of the people be.
The ingathering.
So, all this, it wasn't by chance. It was not by chance.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy seeing like the consistencies from the very beginning in the Most High's plan and how it's literally lived out like in our experience throughout history now.
Exactly, like he said, like sukkah, and then he goes and creates a mimic in the 8th month.
On the 15th day of all.
On the 15th day.
So you realize that he wasn't playing.
This is pretty amazing.
Now, if we come forward now to Yahuwah is on a donkey. He's riding into Jerusalem. They say Hosanna. Of course, we learned recently that Hosanna really means save us. In Western world, we say Hosanna means blessed be Yahuwah, the Lord. That's not what they were saying. They were saying save us.
Save us.
Yeah, that's what they were saying. Save us. Now, he's riding in. When he was born, as we discussed earlier, the Romans were in charge of selecting the high priest. Again, the same situation that we found happening with Jeroboam replacing the high priest. Here
so
we
pause.
find,
So that's how we got the Pharisees and Sadducees then,
right?
Because they removed Aaron, the line of Aaron.
Right, and they were selecting, and they were sold out. They were at this time sold out Hebrews, which
connected that. Wow!
A host being given to the little horn by the way of transgression that was in Ptolemy Philadelphia's time when Alexander the Great had died and his kingdom split in two. Sounds deep. I'm not going to go deep.
No, but it makes sense. It makes sense that it started.
That's where we get the Pentateuch from.
And that's how we got the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Roman selected, the people selected by Rome.
And of course, John Hyrcanus had now forced some Edomites to be Jews. So this was all a mix of that happening right here.
That's
100 years before, 130 years before, he had forced some Edomites to become Jews. So they were a part of this mix also. And it is said that Herod is the descendant of one of these Edomites. But let's not get too deep in that. So the point I'm making here is that when the time came for us to make the right decision again, remember that hundreds of years have passed since the horrible abomination that caused desolation was set up by Jeroboam and removed from Israel, in essence, the Hamashiach. Yet he said he would have come to gather them to repair the old waste places. Here is the Hamashiach now on the Roman torture instrument that many people like to glorify so much. It's their instrument that shows that they have dominion, the cross. Here is Christ, the Hamashiach, on the cross. And here are the people in front of him, incited by the leadership that has already been infiltrated by Rome. That the Bible says that a host were given to this beast by the way of transgression. These are the hosts, the 70 that went to to Alexandria to rewrite
Septuagint.
the Septuagint.
The Septuagint.
I did say the Pentateuch first. I'm sorry, wrong.
Yeah,
The
it's, I know
Septuagint.
I knew what you meant. Septuagint.
So,
Yeah.
so this is what was happening right here now in Jerusalem. So they incited the people to say, crucify him. Christ knew this very well because he spoke of it. We discussed that when he was talking about the vineyard and him lending his vineyard, and he sent his servants to collect the fruits, and they beat them, and he sent his son and they killed his son. You remember that parable? And he said that he told the Pharisees that, look, this kingdom is torn from you and will be given to another, a genus, another like ethnicity. For those who think that he was saying that I'm going to establish a church, he wasn't. No. He was saying I'm going to give this kingdom. So the priests and Levites were fired. Basically. And so he said, he made that clear that the vineyard was his people and he's going to give it to those who will bring the increase. On the cross, he said, forgive them for they know not what they do. So he knew that the people were being incited because the day he was born, 3 years after, Rome started selecting the high priest. So what we find here is that Israel, though we were incited to do it, it doesn't absolve us of the punishment of the crime. Because Yahuwah says that he will not only punish the false prophet, but you who listen to the false prophet. So we have to be careful of who we listen to. Prove it with Torah. Anything I say, go read it and fact check it. And if I make a mistake, come and say, you said that, but this is, and I'll quickly apologize once Torah says you're wrong. But the point I'm making is this, that even though we rejected the embodiment of salvation after being whipped, his skin being torn, he's on the Roman torture instrument, the cross, and he looks to heaven and he says, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. You remember when Yahuwah says that he will show us his back and not his face? You remember when we discussed how Isaiah 53 spells out the entire life of us? And even when he died as a slave, whipped as a slave, lynched as a slave. And while he was on the cross, Yahuwah could not look on him. He bore all that for us. And even in that moment when they had the scrolls of Isaiah, they still rejected. For that, AD 70 came. From AD 1, there was this uneasiness because they were setting up all kind of stuff in the temple. They had some statues in that temple you wouldn't believe. Some pagan gods in that temple. And there was this animosity for the land, who should rule Jerusalem, just like now. And Rome in 66 gave the power to Assyria. That broke the camel's back and the people started to rebel. 13 cities in and around Jerusalem. AD 70 Jerusalem fell after about a 3-year siege. It was horrible conditions inside there. People were starving. People were eating other people inside there. AD 75 thereabout, Masad fell. Masad is on a hill. The slave they took from Jerusalem, they had them fill in the gap between the two hills in like 2 weeks. That must be some serious work, so that they could run a battering ram up to the wall of Masad and tore it down and took the city. They marched some back to the capital. Some were sold in slavery. Some had fled before to Spain, Portugal, parts of Africa. Christ said in Daniel that Christ said through Daniel that from the day that the abomination that maketh desolate should be set up, and the Hamashiach causes the sacrifice to cease, there shall be 1290 days. We discussed earlier that a day is for a year in prophecy. When you check 1290 from AD 70, you land in 1360. The very period that the edict was passed, the expulsion edict that saw them expelling us from all over Europe, everywhere, which basically kick-started what would become the transatlantic slave trade. But we find ourselves here in this time now, after being transported to the western portion of Africa by Ferdinand on ships and stuff like that, we were then taken here. Some of us had been on the west portion of Africa before, because that's how we were enslaved by the Moors. We were then taken here as slaves. The children of those Hebrews from the age of 3 to 28, thus fulfilling Deuteronomy when it says that your children shall be sold into slavery and you shall not know them. Children, literally children, were brought here. If the video that we look at, you could see a little child picking cotton. You could see a part of it where there was a little child holding a kind of leverage thing while another man was being tortured. But we are here, and guess what? We are still looking to other ways to be saved. The Bible says, neither is there salvation in any other, for there is no other name under heaven whereby we must be saved. Humanity realized that we need help. With all these modern invention and technological advancement, yet we still are dying of disease everywhere. Sickness is killing us. We are killing us. Because the biggest enemy to man is man himself. It's like everything we do kill us. Yet, we do not realize. We know that we need help, but we refuse to walk back what started when we launched that coup on Iran. Not even then, when our foreparents, Adam and Shoah, made those fig leaves, to walk that back, to say, Yahuwah, you are the only one. We are looking to politicians. We are looking to endowments, placement in places. We are looking to Pan-Africanism. We are looking to Egyptology. We are looking to all kinds of stuff.
Movements.
And Yahuwah says in Deuteronomy, you shall be sold into slavery and no man shall buy you. The word for buy there is redeem. No man shall redeem you. No man shall come get you. But when I bring again the captivity of Israel and Judah the second time. Isaiah 11:11. Someone, can you find that for me? Isaiah 11:11. He says that I am going to bring you from there. Yet we are running behind so many different systems. It's not by coincidence that 2019, the 400 years end, and we start to hear all these glorious things about black people. I'm not saying that I'm against favor, but I'm saying that I'm seeing this pacifying us, lulling us to sleep in these things, thinking that this is the deliverance from where we are. The person who sang the song, they yearned for deliverance. We are here 400 years later. From 1619, we yearn for deliverance, but make no mistake, it's not going to be politicians. It's not going to be science or medicine. It's not going to be any of this. Yahuwah says that I will deliver you. And the problem is that we are in this modern, postmodern society, and we are looking for another way to be delivered or to be saved. I will repeat, neither is there salvation found in any other, for there is no other name under heaven, under the Shamayim, given among men whereby we must be saved or rescued. The word for saved there in Hebrew is actually rescued. And it means to rescue from your enemy or illness. So even salvation, the term salvation, speaks to us being in a subjugated situation. When we are looking at these things, the people that we are supposed to be living to show them what Torah is, we're sending mixed signals in a time when we should be clearly stating what Torah is saying. Our deliverance is not in any of these things. And now more than ever, you're hearing about these Pan-African, Egyptology, Africa this, Africa that, and as if everything that comes out of Africa is good and everything that comes from everywhere else is bad. As if it was not us who made those two golden calves and the first one. And we was not us who crucified him. Hence why we are here. We are here in this transatlantic slave trade. And I'm saying this one because we are still in the land of captivity. We are not in the New Jerusalem. It means that we are still captives. And if we believe we are not captives, Yahuwah is going to come rescue us. So who would you rescue? A captive. So Yahuwah knows that you're captives also. It's only you who think you're not a captive. Yahuwah says, I'm going to come rescue you. We now have to start to live that. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be proclaimed in all the world. You know what that is? Start to proclaim and confess that we are here because we sinned. That's where it starts. We are here because we sinned. Stop looking everywhere else to blame everyone. Yes, their punishment will come. However, you will be punished with them if you don't repent. So, our thing is, start to from where it is. We walked away from salvation and tried to do it ourselves. And we are sorry, Yahuwah. And we tell the world that we have done that. And here's us walking back to him by his grace. And that's the only way it's going to happen. Neither is there salvation in any other. Neither is there the ability to rescue in any other. Let us put it plain English. Neither is there the ability to rescue you from where you are now in any other. For there is no other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be rescued but the Hamashiach, Yehoshua Hamashiach. I mean, I don't.
It was all. That was awesome, definitely.
I think you said it all. Wow.
Brings it back home when he went to the temple and he said, "Hey, I'm giving you a proclamation. I'm coming to set the captives free. You know, this is the system that we are in." So, you know, he's like that. He's restoring that priestly kingdom. You know, and that you know, and bidding us to come back to him, to follow him, to turn away from the things that we had set up, the idols that we had set up and our foreparents have set up, to return back to him. So powerful, definitely powerful.
Toda Rabbah.
All praise to the Most High.
Is there anything that wasn't clear? Anyone want something clarified?
Nah, it definitely just sparks.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this is a very edifying lesson. I have been listening and I appreciate it personally. And there's a lot to learn from what had been said, especially in the latter part of the lesson where a lot of the points have been woven together from circle.
You're going in and out. Can you repeat when you said the latter part of the lesson?
Yeah, let me actually speak up. That's my bad.
Okay.
But yeah, I was saying I really appreciate the lesson and how a lot of the
So
things were brought
Jamaican.
full circle. Yeah, man, Jamaican and I'm a bless up teacher. And Miles, I appreciate you too, bro. I've been watching your journey for a while.
Uh,
And from before, I know you gave up a lot for, to pursue this walk. And that in itself highlight like a large part of what the walk is about, sacrifice. Because we know that, there's a lot that can be quote unquote people would consider being gained in the world, but at the end of the day, if you gain the world and lose yourself, then it's a loss at the end of the day. So,
for
like
real.
personally, I see that, I've seen it, bro, and I truly, it is an inspiration in itself. Um, and the fact that you're even doing the best to bring that to this niche of the generation, it's really hard to see folks like in this particular in this age range that are actually passionate or seeking truth, because at the end of the day, I mean, we are born into a world that revolves around, that has already veered off far from Torah, from the truth. So being born in that, um, the only way to find that relief and that redemption, that salvation that we have been seeking, is to come back to the truth. We understand that the Torah was given in the context of our culture a very long time ago, in an ancient context, right? And even the deeper understanding of the language, the Hebrew language, and how it's represented, even the name of I do say Yahusha, the the meaning of it. The meaning a lot of times it is, or the meaning is the real um the real importance of real importance. It means in itself salvation. And if that is the blueprint, or if that is the if that is the outline for how one is to act, or carry out, or come through or closer to the Most High, then that in itself, the name and what it represents, speaks volumes. And I really appreciate the direction of the lesson. At some points, I actually wanted to interject, but we just have to sit down and listen still, because sometimes I have that tendency to want to jump out and say something, because it's something that I'm also extremely passionate about. But it really helps to sit back and listen, because a lot of the things that I would have wanted to say, they were said. And teacher, you're extremely knowledgeable, bless up for that. At the end of the day, a very skillful educator, and you brought out a lot of important points. One thing that I wanted to expound on, um, and just highlight in just how profound that really is. Even I think it was Stanley, his name is Stanley. He himself, with the mind blown. That's the same reaction I had like the first time I had that realization that, even all the things about the Levitical priesthood, that had a lot of them that had been set up, they were as representations, right? Because even Moses, how he would have acted, as the Most High said, you will be as a god to Pharaoh, and Aaron your brother will be as a prophet. So he would have had a more direct understanding of the inward representation of what the Most High wanted from his people, for a people that came out of a system, and out of Egypt, so to speak, that a same type of Babylonian system that we're still under even today. So they would have lacked the understanding of how to really bring forth true repentance. So a lot of the physical things that were set up would have been as a way to atone, right? In the same fashion that the Messiah would have come to do. And it was a foreshadowing of that same action. So it's just one of the things I wanted to highlight. So you definitely brought that to the forefront of how even what the calf would have represented. A lot of the gods are quote unquote gods. I mean, whatever you put on the throne of your heart at the end of the day, and what you live your life by, would dictate your worship, right? And even in modern society, I think I'm of an understanding that even the representation of the bull, as it relates to economy and commerce and wealth, physical worldly wealth. So if that is at the forefront of your mind, even when Peter had mentioned, a lot of our people, we've grown about the same things that we bought ourselves into. You know what I mean? It's like we would want to case an economic system or whatever, it would always get shut down because you can't play the enemy's game at the end of the day and expect to beat them at their own game. You have to go back to who you were called to be, the context of who, you're calling, or what the Most High has called us to do, from the beginning. But yeah, it's just a very edifying lesson. I love how, stuff was brought out, and just want, big up everybody at the same time, everybody that, is also listening. It really, it truly warms my heart because for the longest while it just felt like where's everybody else with the truth? You know what I'm saying? It's like, man,
There are
it's been a
those
while.
on
Trust
the
me, fam.
road.
Yeah, I mean that's just what it is.
For real.
You know,
Bless,
I'm just on big up, you know?
Bless
Yeah,
up.
bless up for
Blessings,
real,
bro.
man.
All right.
yeah,
And
bless up.
yeah, and bro, after this, give me a link, man, cause I look for like brothers for you to like discuss and talk with like continually. But
Give the Discord.
Bro, I'm
Oh,
definitely, you see, especially that you extend that olive branch, bro. I'm going to be reaching out to you because I've been sending even certain parts of your content to
Mm,
like some individuals that I have been wanting to bring, to show the real wealth,
mm,
the understanding. Bro, you have a beautiful way with words. You get me? And how you expound on things. You get me? And um yeah, it's a gift. It's I believe as an a blessing that the Most High has given you to use.
mm.
Yeah, bro. I mean, I will definitely be reaching out to you. Um, I'm surprised I might have already, in the past, but I don't know. We'll find out. As I
Yeah,
will
man.
be reaching out.
Yeah, man, me link you back like as soon as this is done. But no, you're completely right, and I give thanks to the Most High always,
Um,
because this walk does take, like Mom talked about before, like separation, and
mhm,
like the words that were just said, even like were really a reassurance for me, and I hope it resonated with anyone else because that separation can be difficult. You can feel like you're walking away from your dreams, you're walking away from your career, you're walking away from this worldly security, you're walking away from
mhm,
people, things that you like, things that you enjoy, and it can be and it is like a difficult process. But as you grow closer to the Most High, or I would say as you choose Him more, you're revealed to more and more of the wealth that He has, that everything that you're searching for out there, in the same way that everything that our ancestors have searched for out there, He has already provided and more. And so engaging that process of separation and engaging trust in the midst of that process of separation, when it doesn't seem like what you're walking towards is worth it, engaging trust in prayer, like the Most High is not short of wealth to reveal to you and what He has for you, not only in a physical sense but in a personal sense, in the sense of fulfillment that you will find, the sense of completion, the sense of belonging that you find when you're operating with the one who created you, far extends any sense of belonging that we search for in our jobs, in our relationships, in movements, in politics, in people, in the world in general. What the Most High offers far extends like any of that. So I appreciate that reassurance, and I pray that like anyone else who's struggling with this separation, struggling in this journey, could be like edified by that as well. And someone had asked in the chat. By the way, for anybody who hasn't or anybody who's interested, we made a Discord group chat, so that when we're not just here, we talk throughout the week. We send questions, we send encouragement. You can talk to people personally, so you don't feel so alone. But Kudzai, I'm sorry if I didn't say your name correctly. Kudzai asked, this is history based, but were any Israelites sent to any southern Africa countries?
Okay, there were always Israelites going to southern African countries because since Rehoboam and Jeroboam, a whole lot of Israelites had migrated to different places. I can't name the exact places in Africa now, but there were Hebrews even in Egypt still. There were Hebrews in South Africa, Ethiopia. Well,
that's the Greek name. Yeah,
Ethiopia.
that's the Greek name. Yeah,
Yeah.
but Ethiopia. Yeah,
Kush,
yep, land of Cush.
Abyssinia. actually covers most of the land we call Africa today.
Mm-hmm.
So to
The
answer
whole, pretty much the whole northeast side. So Ethiopia,
including Iraq and
Eritrea, yeah, all of that.
it covers all that land. So really and truly, yes, we're always in all over Africa. We're in all of Africa. Where we were in smaller numbers is actually like Europe, because you remember Paul Shaul said that he was going to Spain. We were in Spain long before, because when Nebuchadnezzar besieged Jerusalem the first time, some of us went back to Spain, and we had some powerful people there, some family called Nigger. We'll get into that another time, but Negro. I can't remember the name, the name they use now, but these were black families in Spain that were doing some crazy stuff, some powerful stuff in politics. Huh?
Thanks.
Huh?
Yeah, Acts 13:1, it talks about the niggas there.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different, yeah, you said it, but that's powerful.
So yes, we were, for the person who asked the question, yes, we were in Southern Africa in different ways and places. The ones that were mentioned in the Bible mainly, it's because you notice the Bible in Kings, it goes Israel, Judah, it tells you who was reigning while who was reigning over this side and that side. And it follows that because of the process of salvation. And then it follows where we will go, mainly Judah, in the transatlantic, because most of who came here, who came here, is from Judah. Because that's who were in Portugal, Spain, on the western portion of Africa when the expulsion edict was handed out. So, but yes, our people were in all places in Africa, in the world, as a matter of fact, because a lot of us were actually travelers who traveled as far as the Americas. Someone had wanted to come in that.
Thank you. I don't know, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you for answering, because I'm in Zimbabwe, and that's in Southern Africa. Yeah. And it seems as if, I don't know, it seems as if people are not really awake to this aspect of the truth, and it does get lonely. So I just had to ask, because I do doubt, I'm like, it seems like I'm the only one in Zimbabwe, who knows? So I just wanted to ask, just for clarity from that aspect. So thank you very much for clarifying that for me.
Thank you very much for coming and for being here, because we don't realize how the impact and footprint of Hebrews, and I should actually go into some of that to show where we were at times, because there's a lot of books that does that. Some of them are very expensive, the ones I don't have, of course. Yeah. But yes, you're correct. It feels lonely sometimes. I've walked this road for over 20 years from the time Yahuwah called me specifically to this message. And I've done what I thought was the way I should have gone, being human. And he has brought me full circle to where I am today. And it gets lonely. It gets lonely.
It does.
It's frustrating, and sometimes when you say stuff and the pushback comes to you, you go home and you feel as if you just offended the whole world, and you feel bad for saying the truth. But then Yahuwah brings you back to the center and says, it's gonna happen, but as he said to Jeremiah, don't be afraid of their faces. I'm gonna make your face hard against theirs. And I think he did that to me. I remember praying for tact, because I used to just say it as it is. My family tends to do that. My siblings, they tend to just say it as it is. No polish, no anything. So I used to just say it as it is, and I started to pray for Yahuwah to give me tact in how I respond to some things. And he's still working. He's still working. But thank you all. Thank you, Kudzai.
Kudzai, is that the right way to pronounce it?
Kudzai.
Kudzai. Word.
And we are just happy for the encouragement that Yashakai, my Jamaican brother,
Yes, Shakai.
has
He
given.
said something interesting. I don't want to let slip. He said how in the financial sector it's bull. You know, in
Yeah.
stock market,
Yeah.
and I was very important. I thought that was very keen that he mentioned that when you can make a god of anything, whether it's your opinion or even wherever your heart lays it, you make a god of it. And that was very interesting that Yashakai said that even in the reference of the bull and what it means even plays out in our capitalistic societies and stock market.
And nothing in this.
I do want to say though, like I do know that ultimately, like again, seeing that we were born for the most, we were born in captivity. Spiritual, mental, physical. It's all around captivity, and a lot of times, like we are at war, on all of these levels at the same time. And I think it's also important to know that all of these things were also put under the feet of the Messiah. So the world at the end of the day, it can't govern you. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, but these things can be used purpose oriented in a way to benefit His kingdom.
Amen.
Right. So so at the end of the day, it is not to try to condemn anybody that is trying to make use of whatever resources the Most High may have blessed them with at the end of the day. But the primary thing is that just like how even with lack of understanding, the priests would have through a process atoned for we have whatever the sins of the people were. We just have to ensure that we're following the representation and the blueprint of the Messiah, and allowing Him then to intercede for us, and not having these things be on the throne of
the objective, even though we do walk mournfully, and we make the sacrifice, we there is a triumph. There is supposed to be a triumph. There is triumph in Him. But yeah, it's just that sometimes when I come off on particular notes, it does tend to come off as as putting down. Some people will it does come off that way. It comes off abrasive, and I do understand sometimes it may be necessary to separate who's there for it, who's there for the most at the end of the day, but I just wanted to state that. I don't know why that was in my spirit to say, but
yeah, I'm happy.
I just wanted to say that also.
Yeah, I'm happy you did, because it must be noted that we take a deliberate approach here, not to bash religion, persons, anything, but to see everyone as growing out of something and coming into truth, as we were also in transgression in many ways.
Exactly, and the awesome part about what you also mentioned, I don't know if I'm interrupted a bit, but maybe it doesn't.
No, go through, man.
But when you mentioned earlier, that you did make a point about how we, even though we're born in sin, the Most High, or even the purpose of the Messiah, and how He covers us, right? In a lot of, because He covers us because we're in the midst of sin. We're not in the ancient context that we were, and we're still fighting the battle daily. There are a lot of things that are put in our way, whether intentionally by those that may understand and want to keep us in captivity, because they understand that once we come to the understanding of who we are, and we leave the mechanisms that they've put in place to help us feeding into this repetitive cycle of self-destruction, right? Yeah, eventually it gets to a point where when we truly put our heart and soul into where it's supposed to go in the first place, which is back to the Most High, we will be free, and we will be given, even though we understand that but the heart is a wicked thing, the Most High will still give you the desires of your heart, right? And in that, well,
if I'm speaking for myself, peace, true peace, we're in a place where we can actually when we can come to a full realization of the law and what it represents as what the Messiah has laid out for us, being in a place where we can love our brother, where we will love our brother as ourselves, right? And love the Most High above all else. And in that, because we understand the law in the context at the time, it was the meaning, what we were supposed to get out of it. Because if you love your brother as yourself, you won't do this, right? If the Most High is, at the center of your being, then you won't be chasing after this and that at the end of the day. And even simple things that I'm not sure at what aspect of the law, like even some of the things pertaining to, how you carry yourself, right? Like even when you go closer to those things, it definitely does show you a barrier in how certain things definitely do take up a large portion of the mind and spirit and your effort on a daily. So it does force it to separate, and once you do it, definitely changes the picture of all of that. But at the end of the day, with that being said, definitely appreciate even the opportunity, and you let me speak, because some of the time I feel like when I do get to speak, it's almost like my just back out. It's like, all right, am I saying too much? All right, well, yeah. Like really appreciate the space. I really love the space. Yeah, I'm really grateful that the Most High, put this in y'all's spirit to just push this forward, because it truly is a blessing. Just want to another set of reassurance.
Yeah, to see the head there happening, the separation. And I must say again that we're called not to separate people from people, but to separate people from sin. We are called to be that light, to say, hey, look here. Here's what Torah says. And by them walking towards Torah, they're walking away from sin.
True.
So the het is happening here, and I'm happy that Yahuwah could have spoken through us, through all of us. And again, I want to celebrate it, Amore. Amore, for the first time, for those who weren't here last week, she said that she's going to observe the Shabbat for the first time this week, and I want to celebrate with her.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
And we are not here. There will be a mixed multitude, and I know it may become a question for some person, because there are groups out there saying that only bloodline Hebrews will be saved. That's a lie. Every race that walks in Torah, it doesn't matter where you're from, once you walk in Torah and Yahuwah finds you faithfully walking in Torah, whether death comes first or he comes first, you will be saved. You will be justified or made just. So it's not limited to any race as it's black people only. Yes, we are Hebrews, but we have to accept that we came here because we sinned.
And even,
a lot of us don't talk about that part.
And that was always the function of the Hebrew, not to be set apart for the sake of being set apart for ourselves, but to be set apart to be an example, a light unto the nations. Yes. And so it's always, the Most High has always had everyone in mind. This is just a process by which he chose to see that through. And as we get to a close, Fatima had said in the chat, she said, I just want to say thank you, coming from a family who basically makes up the church, apostles, pastors, and teachers and members. They all refuse the correct interpretation, so my walk gets lonely, but you guys help. And I just wanted to reiterate here, because it was on my heart earlier, of that's, for one, I think what the Discord, I hope can function as, because I know how lonely it gets for me. I can't imagine how lonely it was for my dad for 20 years. But I know how lonely it gets for me, and I know how sometimes you can feel isolated. And I especially know how the enemy will attack in isolation. He will attack your thoughts and your perceptions when you feel like you're all alone, And so I just want to reiterate how important it is that we're like connecting, and that we're reaching out, you know, throughout the week, and we're reaching out when we're struggling, and we're reaching out when we're battling, you know, and speaking to people. And I hope that, you know, as we continue these studies, we can really grow closer to feel, you know, like a family, you know, because that's how we're called to function, not as not even as friends. I would say I seek out like family, people I can truly depend on to be examples of Torah, to counsel me in Torah, to be people I can confide in Torah, you know. And so for anybody who's in the Discord, I talked to a couple people this week about a couple different things, but please at any point feel free to like reach out to me, my dad, or even other people who are in this group, so that we can grow together. I really don't, I would hate to imagine like somebody struggling on their own, and I know how I am, how I will have people, but I will just feel like I'm on my own and refuse to reach out. So I just want to implore, I know it can be difficult, but please do not hesitate if you're struggling, or if you're battling, or if you just need a friend, you know, by all means reach out to any of us in the Discord, and I'll definitely like be there to like reach back and function in whatever way the Most High might have me or my dad or anyone else.
So that's it.
I think that's it. We'll see you guys next week, Friday.